Hello and welcome to this webinar on behalf of the McGuire Programme. During the webinar, if you have any questions or queries, you can use the Q&A tab at the bottom of the screen, and we'll have a questions and answers session towards the end of the webinar. Sharon Gablet is my name, and I've been a member of the McGuire Programme since 2010. During the webinar, we'd like to give you some insight into how the McGuire Programme can help people who are challenged by stuttering. We have some members with us this evening, and they'll be speaking about their own personal experiences, as well as giving some information on how the course structure works and also the backup support that is provided to all the members. Firstly, I'd like to introduce you to Joe Donnell, and Joe is the Regional Director of the McGuire Programme here in Ireland. Joe.
What is the McGuire Programme? What are we about? This is a worldwide membership-based programme run by people who stutter for people who stutter. We provide intensive courses with a lifetime follow-up support network. First intensive course held in Ireland was in 1996. We're currently running 3 courses throughout the year. The next course will be held at the end of March, and that will be in Newry. We're not fluent speakers, we're not speech and language therapists. We're just people who stutter, who have found a way we can deal with stuttering very successfully. The McGuire Programme is not a cure for stuttering. Not a cure for stuttering. This is not a short-term fix. This is more long-term. And basically what we're trying to do is we're trying to learn new habits. Then we want to make new habits stronger than the old habits. This requires hard work. And we all know that nothing beats hard work. This requires repetition. It requires sacrifice. It requires stepping outside the comfort zone. It requires non-avoidance behaviour. It requires using the McGuire Programme's follow-up support and so on. With time and effort, we can reach a stage where we enjoy speaking, we're having fun speaking, rather than hating having to speak. So thank you all for listening, and let me hand you back now to Sharon.
I'd like to speak a little bit about the different types of stuttering. We have 2 types. There's the overt stutter and the covert stutter. Now, the overt stutter it's very noticeable when a person tries to speak. You will see them physically blocking. You will see distortion within their face as they try and push through words or sounds that are challenging. And then there's the covert stutter, the person who will try to hide their stutter as much as possible, leading to a lot of anxiety and stress while they avoid and substitute words and sounds. So I'd like to introduce you to Liz, and Liz joined us only a few weeks ago at the beginning of November for her very first course. And Liz is going to speak a little about her own experiences as an overt stutterer. But before Liz speaks, I'm just going to share a couple of seconds of her first day video.
And Liz, can I get the names of your close family members, please?
Okay, I've got 6 siblings, so Tomas, Emery, Reid, Teresa, Kevin, John.
That's a lot of siblings.
Liz Barry. Watching that brings all the emotion back that I felt on that evening when David asked for us to be introduced. I felt the nausea coming up. I was so disturbed by it, and it was pretty obvious by my speech and my reaction. I was an overt stutterer, as Sharon mentioned, fairly obvious. You can see the facial distortion. You can see the struggle and the pushing through till nearly I was out of breath. You can see the fear and the fidgeting and the looking away, and thus the overall general discomfort. After my introduction and the Zoom ended, I was relieved it was over, but ashamed of my life that that was publicised to people I didn't know, other coaches and other families. I went to bed quite tearful, actually, thinking about the morning and just dreading it all over. Anyway, I fought on, got up and went ahead. Did the 3 days, which were hardcore and intense, but worth it. I joined the course for 2 reasons. Firstly being family reasons, that my daughter was struggling and I wasn't able to converse with her the way I should have been. I had it all in my head, all the advice, but when I tried to reiterate it to her, it was so distorted that she was even getting fed up, and she was practically ending my sentences and saying, "It's okay, Mom." So that's the other reason, is that my parents, who are both very elderly, had seen the change. Well, I always had a stammer and had it for 30 years, but they had seen it regress in the last year, let's say, and wanted to pay for speech therapy out of their pensions. So that was kind of a game changer, both of them situations. And I realised at 43 that something had to be done. So my sister took it on board, knowing that I wouldn't make the calls because I wasn't a phone person, I was a texting person. And we all know why that was. So she got on to Joe. Joe got on to me. I dodged Joe first because he was ringing and I don't do phone calls. I asked him to text me, which he did, but said we would have to converse the following day as he needed to chat about the programme with me face to face. So we did that and I joined up. Didn't want to think about it because dreaded it, really, the fear of exposing myself, I suppose, to the world and the coaches and family and friends and other participants who had families who would be also watching with probably sympathy. So I didn't really want that, obviously, but knew I had to face it. So when it came to the day to pack up and move to my apartment for the few days, I did and went, and it has been life-changing, to say the least. To think it's been in the same month, it's hard to credit that it was actually November and we're still in November and I'm here on a webinar talking voluntary, not with a gun to my head, was given the choice and said yes. So to face that fear alone, now I do feel a bit anxious, but the method really does work even over the anxiety. The breathing does work, and the actual method itself also, if you do feel the hesitancy. It's not easy practice. It's an easy technique, but it's not an easy practice. It's work, work, work. And I am going to keep at it, because the improvement, even for my kids, is dramatic. They keep saying, but your stammer is gone, Mom. And I'm saying, no, it's not gone. I will always have a stammer. That's part of me, but I have a new way now to manage it, and I have a technique to control it instead of it ruling me, which it did, and it ruled a lot of my situations in life, but not anymore. So thanks to Joe and the coaches and the background team and all the Irish coaches and the international coaches who are there on hand daily to take calls if you're struggling, or just if you want to practice your method. They're on hand for that as well, which is fantastic. So that's it for me. Liz Barry.
Thank you so much, Liz. What an amazing transformation in such a few short weeks. And thank you as well for your openness about your struggles and your reasons why you wanted to overcome your stutter. So as we saw with Liz, she was an overt stutterer. We could see the struggle while she tried to say the names of her brothers and sisters. Now I'd like to introduce Lindsay, who would be a covert stutterer, someone who really tried her best to hide her stutter. And before Lindsay speaks, I'm just going to show a few minutes or a few seconds of her first day video.
Okay. Lindsay, do you have any hobbies or any interests?
I love shopping. Recently started going walking with my sisters, trying to get a bit fitter. During lockdown we kind of would have done that, but I used to sing when I was in my younger days and play the piano, but kind of went away from that when the kids came along. Not really a fan of sports or any of those physical activities. I'm Lindsay Trainer. So that was me, starting out on this crazy journey just 3 weeks ago. Looking at that video, you probably would think, why is she on the programme? There's nothing wrong with her speech. But what you saw on that video was just the tip of the iceberg. Even though on the outside, the words were coming out, inside my head was where the mental struggle was happening. I was struggling deep down with my speech, something which I had hid and tried to deal with by myself for over 20 years. I was a covert stammerer, something that I had never even heard of before the course. I would have used every trick in the book through word substitution and avoiding situations. For me, I was an extremely good covert, with many of my friends and family not even knowing that I had a speech problem. School days for me were definitely some of the hardest days. That fear of having to read aloud in class was just excruciating. I would have went to the toilet, pretended to be sick, just hoping that when I would come back, my turn would be over. So fast forward on a few years and many, many more obstacles. My first part-time job, going for university interviews, meeting new people, and generally just trying to get through life. Those feelings of embarrassment, shame, and self-hatred were becoming even stronger. And people used to say to me, what would your one wish be if you rubbed a magic lamp? And I always would have thought to myself, I just want to be able to speak normally. I told myself that I would never get married, or how could I ever have a family when I couldn't even say my own name. However, Marty came along and I achieved my dream of becoming a mummy. Even having the kids and choosing their names was another thing to consider with my stammer. Trying to think of names that I could actually say easily. My stammer never has mattered to them. They just see me as their mummy. But deep down, it was still really affecting me. Daily life was becoming even more difficult. My husband would have made all of our phone calls, as I just couldn't get the words to come out. I avoided meeting new people, as I knew I would have to introduce myself, and as someone that struggles with their speech, even that simple task of saying your name is like a mountain to climb sometimes. Having been covert for 20 years and now openly admitting to people about my speech is a totally new concept to me. If you had said to me this time last year that I would be doing this now, I definitely wouldn't have believed you. So here I am, 3 weeks on, feeling a lot more confident in myself, a lot more assertive, and not ashamed of my stammer anymore, as it makes me the person that I am today. The support from the coaches, the course instructors, Joe and Sharon has been absolutely amazing. It is so comforting to know that there is always someone to speak to on the other end of the phone, whether you're having a good day or a bad day. They're always there to listen and to offer advice. I have really enjoyed this whole process of meeting
so many new people and feel so privileged to share this journey with the 6 new students also. To watch everyone's transformation has just been so humbling, and I'm so grateful now that I have taken this opportunity with both hands. And so finally, a few days after I left the course, I read this quote on social media and thought, that is me. It just described the way I had been feeling for so long. Just because she smiles doesn't mean she's happy. To understand how she really feels, you have to let her talk, and you have to be willing to listen. Thank you so much for listening, and Lindsay Trainer speaking.
Well done, Lindsay, and thank you so much for your courage in being so honest about your struggles as a covert stutterer. And it's amazing to see you being so open and now being free to speak about your stutter and not feeling that you have to hide it. Well done. I'd like to introduce you now to Megan Griffin, and Megan is a coach on the McGuire Programme. Megan's going to speak about the structure of our courses and what would typically happen during a 3-day intensive course. Megan.
Megan Griffin. Thank you, Sharon. So I'm just going to speak about the structure of our physical courses, which will hopefully be returning next year, permitting with government guidelines. So on the Wednesday evening, it's actually very much like what's happening this evening. So it's an introduction to the McGuire Programme. You'll be able to hear other member stories, such as Liz and Lindsay this evening. So we work in large conference rooms, and you'll be working with experienced coaches who have all been through the programme themselves. So we want you to go home knowing that you gave your all for the full course and for the full 3 days. As has been said before, this is a hard-working programme, which is very, very challenging, but it's worth it, as you've seen from the results this evening. So the hard work begins on the Thursday, which is called our Physical Thursday. This requires courage, work ethic and perseverance, early mornings, late nights, and you'll need to have full concentration for the full 3 days. On the Thursday, we learn a new way of breathing. This is the foundation of everything that's needed to beat and to control your stammer. So we're learning to speak from scratch again. Firstly with sounds, then we add in words and then phrases. So it is a lot of information to take in, but this is a strong foundation for going home and returning to real life situations. On the Friday of our course, it's our psychological day, and this is where we address all of our old feelings, such as guilt, shame, and the embarrassment that we felt for so long about our speech. So we begin to chip away at this with honesty about ourselves. On the Friday, you'll have the chance to watch coaches make phone calls, and we'll teach you how to make phone calls yourselves. We'll never ask you to do anything that we ourselves haven't done before. You'll also get to watch coaches approach members of the public and ask questions. These are the things that we could never do before because of our stammer. So the new members will get the opportunity to observe the technique in real life. On the Saturday of our course, we bring everything that we've learned so far together, so the physical and the psychological aspects. We hand it over to the new students who begin to make their own phone calls and prove to themselves that they can use the technique and that it really works in situations that they've avoided for so long. So new students approach 100 members of the public to stop them and to use their technique and to prove to themselves that it does work. So we want the new members to be able to gain confidence in using the technique, and not just with us McGuire people. Hopefully on the Saturday you'll be able to have fun speaking, believe it or not, and you'll feel proud of speaking as well, and you'll feel proud of your voice. So you will be more than prepared to go home, but going home is when the real work begins. Just to touch briefly on our hybrid courses, it's much like I've described so far, but just permitting how things are with COVID, it might have to be moved online and delivered via Zoom. So it'll all be online on Zoom, except on the Saturday, where you will meet a coach for street work. We have ran 3 previous online courses with strong results, as you've heard this evening. The hybrid version does require a little bit more commitment, as you're on your own in a room in comparison with being with other McGuire members. Thank you everyone for listening. Back to you, Sharon.
Thank you, Megan. And we'll have one more testimonial from Amna. And Amna also did her first course just 3 weeks ago with Liz and Lindsay. And Amna's going to speak about the changes she has seen over those past few weeks. So we're just going to show a small clip of Amna's first day video.
Yeah, my name's Amna Nasser. I live in Camberley, in Surrey. Yeah. Nasser. So watching that video, you can probably tell that before the course, I was very far from a confident, in control, and comfortable speaker. I could not hold eye contact to save my life when I was having blocks, and in my head, the only 2 options were I could either try to struggle through what I'm having stammer with, keep trying to say it until the word comes out, if it even does, or I could completely avoid certain words and sounds, substitute it for other words, or completely avoid speaking situations at all. Like if I was out with a friend or my mom and I wanted to get a certain drink, for example, from somewhere, I would ask them to get it for me, which I'm sure no one here wants to spend the rest of their life like that, always asking other people or avoiding and having that constant anxiety around speaking, which I definitely had as well. I would find myself having a lot of anxiety and thoughts about the future, so far into the future, like how am I going to communicate at any future jobs? How am I going to ever be able to say what I really want to say? And I had convinced myself that it was impossible and that it's something that I just have to deal with for the rest of my life. And as I'm sure a lot of people can relate, this brought a lot of negative feelings, a lot of helplessness, a lot of self-hatred, and just constantly also comparing myself to fluent speakers, and as silly as it sounds, feeling so envious and jealous of them that I wish I could just be able to speak without having it be such a big deal in my head. And what the McGuire program provided me with was really a third option. It gave me techniques and new ways of speaking that genuinely do help, and that I've found have made a massive difference in not only how I can control my speech, but also how I feel about speaking and how I feel about myself and how I view myself in the speaking situations I'm in. So, for example, there have been many things that have happened since the course in only this month that I truly believe I would not have been able to do before the course, and I wouldn't have been able to do them with the control I've had now. For example, today I had a job interview where I went in feeling excited to speak, and I went in with so much control and confidence. And another example is I volunteer weekly at my local hospital, where my role is literally just to talk to patients, to uplift them, and to try and make them feel better. But before the course, I literally dreaded this role so much. I would constantly complain to my mom about not wanting to go. I hated being there. I hated speaking. And how can someone who hates being there uplift any of the patients she's talking to? So I really struggled with that. But on the very first course, the very first shift I had after the course, I noticed a complete shift in how I felt going in and my attitude to going in and speaking with people. I wasn't dreading it. I felt genuinely excited to go in and use my voice. And boy, did I use my voice. I was projecting my voice like I never did before. I used to always talk quietly, like I was afraid of my own voice. But after the course, I loved talking to the patients, and I felt much more positive and confident in myself. And this is not to say that I didn't have any blocks and that I'm perfectly fluent. I'm nowhere near that, and I still have blocks. But the major change is in how I feel about those blocks, and I feel about myself when I speak. I no longer feel this overwhelming feeling that it's the end of the world if I have a block. I no longer beat myself up about it, and I know that I can always have the option to use my techniques and control it, and it's made the biggest difference. And also, the coaches and support provided by the McGuire program have completely changed it as well. Whenever I do have a bad day or I have any concerns, there will always be coaches I can call, and I find they always know what to say, no matter what situation you're in or no matter what you're concerned about. They know how it feels, they've been there, and it's just been the most life-changing experience. I've done things I never thought I would have been able to do with an attitude I never thought I would be able to have. So yeah, thank you for listening. Amna Nasser.
Thank you so much, Amna, and great to hear that you're really enjoying that volunteer work and getting the opportunity to really use those amazing techniques that you've learned and controlling your stutter. I'm sure you'll all agree that the three ladies who spoke have all done amazing work in 3 short weeks, and we're all really looking forward to seeing all they achieve over the coming weeks and months. So well done, Liz, Lindsay and Amina. All 3 ladies spoke about the importance of the support network that has helped them over the last few weeks. And I'd like David to speak a little bit about that. David is also a coach on the McGuire Programme. David.
Hi guys, I'm going to speak to you about the support network which is on the programme. Well, firstly I'll say I've been on the programme for 14 years now, and I've been a coach for the last year. To me, the support network is the key for the McGuire Programme. Why? Well, I know before I joined the programme, I felt a huge sense of isolation. I was the only person I knew with a stammer. I couldn't speak to anyone about my stammer. People didn't get it. So when you join the programme and get speaking to other people who have a stammer, who are working on their stammer, the penny really drops. So to start off, once you complete the programme, you'll be assigned your own personal coach. That'll be your go-to person on the McGuire Programme. For the first couple of weeks, you will speak to them nearly every day. We would recommend that you stay in close contact with them for at least the first 18 months. They'll be there to answer any questions, talk to you about bad days or bad situations you've had with your speech, give advice based on their past experiences. So it's really your go-to person. The next point, support groups. So pre-COVID, we would have held bi-weekly support groups across the country in most counties. This would be an hour and a half where McGuire members come and practice our techniques, role play speeches, have fun with our speech while practicing. Currently, we are running a weekly support group meeting on Zoom with the same principle apply. Next year, we're hoping to bring back the face-to-face support groups. The third point, so as you probably know, the McGuire Programme is a worldwide programme which operates in many countries, and within each country there's a list of McGuire coaches. So we have access to the worldwide support group phone list where we can speak to coaches at any time of the day. As an example, when I came off my first course, I used to drive to work at 6 AM, so I couldn't ring an Irish coach at that time. So I used to ring a couple of coaches in Australia and New Zealand. So it helps you practice your technique, push out your comfort zone. So there is a coach available 24/7. Online support. Currently we're hosting meetings on Zoom, but there's also a McGuire forum where we can post topics and get advice from all members of the programme across the world. As Joe mentioned, we host 3 courses a year. So once you finish your course, you're recommended and more than welcome to come and attend remaining courses where you can go and spend the 3 days working on your speech, pushing out your comfort zones, learning more about the programme, and also give something back. You can help out with the new students on that course. Similarly, we host a number of improvement days throughout the year. These are 1 or 2 day events where McGuire members come to practice their techniques and push out comfort zones, etc. for the day. As well as attending the programme, you get a copy of Beyond Stuttering, which is the book that was written by our founder, Dave McGuire. It contains all the key principles of the technique, and it's recommended you read it a number of times. There's so much information in it that it's really, really helpful. The second last point is training opportunities. So myself, Joe, Sharon and Megan, we all joined the programme trying to work on our speech. We are all new students. And over the years, we attended staff training and became coaches. So you can work your way up from being a coach to a course instructor, a staff trainer, and eventually even take over from Joe maybe. So the final point, I suppose, summarizes the rest of them. Everything there is for life. Once you join the programme, you have access to everything on the McGuire programme for the rest of your life. As I said, I joined the programme in 2007. I probably stayed active for the first 5 or 6 years. I drifted away from the programme, immaturely thought I was probably fixed. So after a few years, I realised I had to stay involved. So you phone up Joe and you are welcome back with open arms. Back on my first course in 4 years, and Joe had me doing presentations and encouraged me to become a coach. So when it says lifetime, it is lifetime. Thanks very much. I hope you took something from that. David Slattery.
I'd just like to say a huge thank you to all the panelists who joined us this evening, in particular to Liz, Lindsay and Amna, who are so new to the programme and have done such an amazing job this evening, speaking openly and honestly with such control in their speech as well. So thank you so much, ladies. And also David and Megan, thank you so much for your information regarding the course and the support network. So thank you all for joining us this evening, and I hope you all have a really good evening.